must be church, right on time.
Just like that.
The Executive Board meeting of the Lakes Region Planning Commission for Wednesday, March 11th, 2015. And we do have a quorum of appointed voting members present, which is excellent. And in case I forget it, I would like to thank you all again for coming, participating, and attending. It's very, very important. I love the interplay and the interchange that we have here and come up with the right things to do for the region. And it gives me a chance to hear what's going on in Freedom too, so that's great.
Lively place.
Also, I would like to thank Rosemary Landry for running for selectman in Meredith. Excellent. That was a lot of work on your part. And
it was. Well, there were 8 people, so the votes got divided, so it made it difficult. But anyway.
It's wonderful to see people step forward and want to make positive changes for their community. That's excellent. Thank you.
A lot of them were my friends too, so made it difficult,
Was or were?
Well, they will. No, they still are, but.
I know, I lost.
You lost?
I lost too.
You lost?
As selectman?
What did you lose?
Did you?
Oh,
You were running for
I got 29 votes
For what?
for selectmen.
No, really?
Seriously?
That,
And everybody else got 200 and something. There was a reason why I ran. Just take votes away from one individual, but now we'll go backwards in our town because these people just want to cut the police department, fire department, everything.
Just cutters, huh?
Just cutters, that's all they are. But that's okay. I didn't say I have to live there forever.
Yeah, elections have consequences.
I'm gonna move to Freedom.
yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
We
where the
keep
action
buying
is.
more and more road equipment, so come on.
Yeah, this is all you do.
That's a bustling town.
Bouncing.
That's right.
If you can find it.
That
Almost
is
like
also
Northfield
true.
Town Hall.
So, the first item on our agenda is consideration of the minutes of February 11th, 2015. They were enclosed in our packet.
I move we accept the minutes of
Second.
February 11th as written.
Motion's been made, motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, raise the right hand. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I started doing that
You're rather
in
right.
the Laconian Planning
You're
Board.
rather right.
We need our nuts in because our minor because we didn't get the right thing.
The Laconia Planning Board is now being televised. Our city, we have a channel 26 on MetroCast, and our council has been on the air, and now they've started putting the other boards on. And so rather than asking people on the board for a vote of just aye or no, you raise their hands so that people can see who's voting for what. It's amazing. So far, it hasn't been any, there hasn't been any negative effect with us doing that, dynamics of the meeting or anything like that. It's very good. Secondly, we're off track. Secondly, consideration of the draft treasurer's report. Mike, could you give us a briefing on the treasurer's report?
Yeah, we, based on the discussion at the last meeting, we made a couple minor revisions, we being Carl and myself, to the third column, which now shows the difference, the budget versus the actual. And the other change that we made was to break out the Bristol master plan by chapters that we're working on. So where it showed last month that there was a negative, you see that the historic chapter was budgeted for $3,500 and we collected $3,500 income. And part of the negative that was shown is that we have collected funds to begin work on the land use chapter. So given that change, we thought it might be a little bit more intuitive, that particular column.
Oh, that's very good. So Northfield, the circuit rider and the 2 circuit rider programs,
Right.
there's been no income from it. Are those going forward?
We have discontinued those 2 contracts.
So that will be a negative 18,000
Yes.
impact on the budget. Any other significant expenditure or new revenue?
Potential new revenues, and we're gonna talk a little bit about a couple of grant applications that we applied for this past month.
Does anyone have any question of Mike about the two revenues, expenditures, or the treasurer's report for this month? Seeing none, I'll honor a motion to accept subject to audit.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion's made and seconded to accept the treasurer's report subject to audit. Any discussion? Yes?
Can I just go back,
Sure.
just a question on the minutes?
Sure.
The treasurer's report, it doesn't look like it was like approved, wasn't it? Don't we usually approve the treasurer's report every month?
Yes.
It doesn't look like there was an MSP there or anything on the treasurer's report. You know, consideration of the draft treasurer's report, isn't it usually approved and stuff like that, like the
Yeah.
minutes?
Subject to audit.
Yeah, subject to audit, definitely is. You can ask Mike to go back and check the,
Maybe it was
The
in the minutes,
recording.
but you just didn't put it in the thing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
You know
most
what I
probably
mean?
was, because we generally, if we didn't do it, someone here would remember that we needed to do it. Okay, then,
Thank you.
on the motion that's on the floor to accept these reports subject to audit, I'll call the question. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, raise your left. Motion passes unanimously.
You're on the left.
I'm just curious, was there a particular reason for the discontinuation of the circuit rider program?
That was a matter of, I don't know, Wayne, if you wanna talk about this.
We're not using it. I mean, the activity in Northfield is slim to none relative to new applications for anything. So the need for that circuit rider is just not there.
Wasn't there?
And we're handling, whatever does come in, we're handling ourselves within the planning board.
Yeah, so it wasn't a performance
No,
issue
no.
or anything?
We've seen, a similar situation in Center Harbor where, the circuit rider, program is designed to do application review and provide reports back to the planning board. That, review has been minimal. They've hired a new planning board clerk. I think the fortunate part of that program is that we've also been assistive in helping the planning board to implement recommendations in their master plan. We completed that 2 years ago. It was a 2.5-year process, and come up with a laundry list of implementation strategies, many of which the community has already worked on, and they've asked us through the circuit rider program to provide assistance that way. So it's been helpful in the downtime to be able to do some longer range planning
Oh.
and to help the community that way.
Oh, that's super. Next is the New Hampshire NHARPC. Are there any comments? Legislative review. Bob, do you want to lead?
Well, if you've taken the time to go through this, the bill to mandate election of planning boards was in subcommittee. It was declared inappropriate, inexpedient to legislate, so that's.
Oh, outstanding.
That's dead.
Was that, do you know, was that a unanimous vote?
I don't know what the vote was on it. I don't get that
Oh,
detail, I just get it was.
because last year, last session, the same thing came up, and it was like 14-0 inexpedient to legislate. It's good that they turned that down again.
Yeah. I mentioned last week the Ham River thing, which is kind of an interesting one. We approved that with amendments. And, rather than excluding the Ham River from the Shoreline Protection Act, the blanket exclusion, they excluded them from applying the Shoreline Protection Act to first, second, and third order streams, which in most cases the Shoreline Protection Act doesn't cover anyway. So it was a more appropriate, rather than a blanket exclusion, it just highlighted the fact that it would only apply to fourth order streams, and I don't think there is a fourth order stream there. So that was a more appropriate, way to go, at least in my opinion. And the third one we were watching was access to property by conservation committees. I went to look at that this morning. It's not jumping out at me.
Oh, Senate Bill 83, powers of conservation commissions.
Yeah, I think that was the one I passed.
Yeah.
The amendment. I'd have to go in and see what the amendment is. Oh, the other one I thought was interesting is Senate Bill 98, which is third-party review for planning boards. And, again, I'll have to pull the bill up to see what the amendment is, but basically they were saying that the applicant provides a list of, if the planning board wants a professional outside opinion on an issue, that the applicant applies a list of potential contractors, and the planning board picks from that list rather than the planning board picking their own pool of contractors. And that apparently passed committee with an amendment. I'll have to look up and see what the amendment is.
But there was one over in the House, HB 368, relative to third-party review required by planning board, that was inexpedient to legislate. I'm hoping that that's the same.
Probably the same,
Looks like the same.
same thing. One's a Senate version, one's a House version, so.
I just, that one makes absolutely no sense. You don't have the applicant choose who they're going to have review their plans. That just defeats the entire process. In Laconia, we require it often to have a third-party review, and we have a group of pre-selected, professionally qualified for those specific things.
Well, the arguments are two sides of the coin. Those that are against this say, you know, a contractor will pick the applicant will pick someone they've worked with. These are contractors that they work with. The other argument is that there's contractors out there that don't like the applicant party and would be biased against them. So that they're arguing let the applicant pick the contractor to make sure that they're not biased against them. The counter argument is that pick somebody that's favorable towards them.
Did you say it passed?
It appears there's a House bill and a Senate bill. The House bill was inexpedient to legislate, and the Senate bill was passed with some amendment, and well, I'd have to look it up and see what the amendment is. I assume those are the same things.
All the hearings are still going on down there, aren't they?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if you read these or not, but I get an update, about every week or so we get an update. So I'll continue to forward these to Marie, and you can send them out.
Could you, when you hear what the amendment was for that one, could you let us know?
No, you can do that.
Okay, no, I hope we'll know.
Yeah, no, that's a lot.
Okay, no, I didn't know if we sent that report every week like you said.
They send this out,
Oh, okay.
but if you want to see the amendment, then you go on to the, it's real easy to get in. You just go onto the website and look up a bill, and
Okay, I can do that.
yeah, it's very simple.
I had a question on SB 83. On this write-up that we all got, It's described as, this bill prohibits members of municipal conservation commissions from serving as agents of the municipality when gathering information about a property not acquired by the conservation commission. I didn't really understand what that was. Anybody know anything more about that?
Basically, I don't understand the intent behind this bill, but if you're a member of the Conservation Committee and let's say a piece of private property was being proposed for conservation easement or something like that, and maybe the town would hold the easement, the conservation member cannot go on that property as an agent of the town, even though it's town business. And, there's already in place a requirement that you need permission to go on to private property, but this says you can't. So it's, I don't know what, I don't know what the motivation behind that is, but.
I think particularly in the southeast, there are some pretty aggressive conservation commissions that are out investigating opportunity, what they consider to be opportunities without talking to landowners. And it's, and then the landowners are thinking it's a conspiracy, you know, and there's some of that going on.
Yeah.
That I can understand.
That's understandable, and that's where the existing law requires permission from the landowner, and you'd think that would be enough. If they don't give permission, then it becomes down. That situation wouldn't hold, but.
Thank you. And currently, DES asked for conservation commissions to help them look at permits, and that was another issue where conservation commissions were going on to private land to check permits for DES, and the landowners objected to that.
Okay, so there is some substance
So
in
that's
there
where
somewhere.
that's where the current law, where you required to have permission of landowner, comes from.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Bob. It's pointing out again that it's really, really important for all of us to follow what's going on down in Concord, because at the beginning of every session, there are so many bills that are put in that we need to understand so that our member communities can either support them or go down and testify against them. That it's a major area for us, and thank you, Bob, for doing this for us. The moving on to the active subcommittee reports, the TAC. Just some comments, and I'll ask Mike to comment. The TAC meeting was held last week here in this room, and it can't be again. The number of communities that are participating in the TAC now have exceeded it. It was not only the table was full, but all the way around the sides of the room was full. There is huge interest by all of our member communities to understand what the devil's going on and how they can participate in any grants, awards, or influence DOT decisions. It's just, it's wonderful, and the people that are attending are the DPW directors, their selectmen, their the town planners. They're the real professional core of our planning commission. And Mike's going to have to find a bigger room. And this TAC has evolved from a very small group into this major information sharing group. Yes, Steve?
Attending it was like, I say it quite like this, here's some money, so they all show up. God's honest truth, that's the way. Years ago, we had a few show, and it built a little bit, but all of a sudden, now there were some individuals I've never seen, even been to their town planning board, never, yeah, it's like, where'd they, all of a sudden, everybody, which is good. Ashland was one. I think that was a real good to see Ashland come out with the whole entourage to do a presentation. I thought that was really good. But it's been there for a long time, and a lot of people just don't understand what goes on here. And I think it's good to see it, but who will show up again? You know, this is just a one-time, you know, we've got all these plans or needs, but where's the money?
The tax is the entry point for communities to begin to participate in the 10-year plan that eventually goes to governor and council. And so for them to begin at the tax level and understand and turn their applications in and be guided by Mike and the staff here in terms of having a viable application is really important. It was wonderful. Bill Watson, Mike had Bill Watson, who's the administrator for the DOT for funding, and he attended also. He comes to many of the meetings. One thing that I want to say before we get into the details, he was pointing out that the DOT is facing a tremendous budget issue, and the $35 per car registration fee to fund the DOT is that it was his premise that if that did not pass, DOT would have to lay off over 600 people. And so he was calling that to the attention that the funding that they have been using to fund DOT, they've all the tricks that they've had of selling roads back and forth to the Turnpike Authority and so forth, they don't have any more in the hopper, and that they're really under the gun. But I personally would expect that every agency in Concord is the same way. But he was pointing out of the $150 million that we get from federal highway, the dissemination of that down through, and indicating that the Lakes region, we have around $4 million at the maximum.
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years, and those 2 years are 10 years out. And that somebody asked him, well, of the $4 million that you're estimating, how many do you think that we'll really get as a region? And he said, well, maybe 2.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And so it really washes down. But then Mike, being the eternal optimist, which I respect, he said, well, 2 million, you can do a lot with 2 million. 2 million is better than none. And so, well, that was my takeaway from there. Mike, would you like to say anything about the TAC?
Sure. I agree with Steve that when funding opportunities come available, the participation rate goes up. But Marie has done a good job, and I've been working with her over the last several months to ensure that the membership letters go out on time. And we have 24 of 30 communities that currently have appointees by their Board of Selectmen represented on the TAC. And that is an increase over what we've had in the past. And I think Marie's done a fine job of notifying people when their terms expire, which has an adverse impact on membership as well. The terms expire and people just don't show up, and we got to a point a couple of years ago where it became pretty readily apparent that we need to change our methodology. So at the same time that DOT continues to face fiscal constraints, we have more people participating, fewer dollars that are available. I think the impression that I was left with, 17 communities talked about their intention to submit proposals for the 10-year plan, total up to more than 24 applications potentially, and there's just not enough money to meet the needs. I think most people at the table would agree that the things being talked about in terms of needed improvements are realities that we're faced with. And so the outcome is we may get up to $4 million over a 2-year period 10 years from now, but the TAC has to go through that process of evaluating and coming to a better understanding of what's the best for the region in terms of that expenditure. And I like the way that the group has worked to get away from parochial thought and really dig in deep and say this is about a regional issue and where do we go in terms of putting forth our best foot in making recommendations to DOT. We're hopeful that we can finish the process at our next meeting on April 1st, and that recommendation would come to the executive board for their acceptance, and ultimately all the regional planning commissions are required to respond by April 30th. So we have a big chore in front of us for the next TAC meeting. We've set aside 4 hours, and hopefully we can get through that process relatively quickly. Otherwise, we might have to have a special meeting to help facilitate.
I was happy to see that towns are not discouraged from wanting to bring their needs forward, realizing that under the current legislation, both state and federal, there's limited money involved. Because if, at this level, if the communities don't come forward with their real need, then there is no way of the legislatures, both state and federal, of truly knowing what the situation is. And so it's bleak when you look at it and you say, my God, you know, these things really need to be done. And but it could influence the legislative decision-making, state and local, in terms of funding available. And so it was nice to see the different people passionately presenting some of their proposals, and this process that we'll go through will be great. I've also asked Mike to, at our commission meeting on the 30th of March, to include on our agenda, thinking that we should do it on as a regular basis, a section on the TAC activities, so that all commissioners could understand, you know, what's taking place and why, and have a chance to, that we can all talk about it. Because so many of our commissioners are also representatives, and they're select people, and they're involved in more things than just our activity. And for them to understand the true needs of our region, I think will be very educational. So we're going to include that on the agenda for the 30th.
Plus, we got a nice, excuse me for interrupting, but a nice list of paving that's going to be done, because this is the last chance a lot of this paving is going to be done. And it's not total revamping, it's what, 2-inch for some and skim type on others, but boy, it's getting smaller and smaller because there's less and less money.
Is that online somewhere?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
We
Where did you
got
see
it,
that list?
Yeah, DOT notified the selectmen.
yeah.
Once you get to be chairman here, you'll get more roads paved.
Sorry, Wade.
No, in honesty, obviously there's nothing to do with it. But they have done an assessment right in this immediate region here in Meredith, from the circle on Parade Road that goes into Laconia.
Mm-hmm.
There's a section there that's going to be, they don't call it rebuilding, they call it reclaiming. So they smooth it out, and they do different things to do different sections. There's one major road that goes, it's 11C, Lily Pond Road, that goes from Route 11 past the airport in Laconia, ties in with Route 11B, which takes you from Guilford to the Weirs. That one's going to have a series of things done to it through that entire road. But it'll be smoothed out, but it's not the major reclamation where they go down 3 or 4 feet and really put in the correct thing. And then 11B itself from Guilford to Laconia is going to be repaved, which
Quite a list.
yeah, there is quite a list.
Where do we see that list?
Yeah, where do we see
That's
that?
the list we're talking about.
Yeah,
We got that from DOT.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Their representative.
there was a list, my understanding, that was distributed to your boards of selectmen. But we did recently receive the list from District 3 that covers most of our region, and I can forward what we got from them.
Yeah, can you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We just got that last week. We've asked District 2, who oversees a portion of the Lakes region for the same list. And Alan Hanson, the district engineer, indicated that maybe by next week they could have something up.
I was in a meeting in, at the Mount Washington Valley Economic Council, and we had, I can't remember his name now, but the person who used to be the DOT chair person, head, and we were talking individually, and he was saying that Route 16 along the lake in Tamworth, Shakorowa, was planned for this year, for 2015. So I'm just curious to know if it really is. That's
For
why.
repaving?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it is on that list.
If it is, then I don't need a copy. That's the one.
Oh, you can see the whole thing.
Okay.
But they were indicating also that this repaving is because of the 4 cents a gallon, the gas tax that was approved. And the way that was structured is that whole 4 cents goes into roads, not into administration. And that for these secondary roads, we get the benefit of it this year and maybe next year, and then that money goes into repaying the bonds for the expansion of of 93.
Yeah.
And so really, if you're not on this list, if federal or state doesn't give more money, it's the slimmings are getting, the pickings are getting slimmer and slimmer. Okay.
Could I ask one more question?
Sure.
Not about the roads, but is this a place to ask about the Scenic Byways Committee?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think of that?
About,
There being one.
well, we established an advisory committee, and we met last week, just before the TAC meeting. We had, out of 13 communities that are on the byway, I think 10 were represented at the meeting. According to the State Byway Committee, there's a responsibility to have representation from each of the byway communities on an advisory committee. And so our course of action was to create a subcommittee of the TAC. And
I only asked that because the report that I've heard was that there is no money.
basically,
Do you do anything?
yeah, the
And so
National
I think-
Byway Program has pretty much been gutted. I think they still serve as a central repository for information. The days of scenic byway grants have gone behind us. Any byway funding that's available is discretionary at the state level through the Transportation Alternatives Program, which is an amalgamation of all kinds of other individual grant programs that were available in the past. So you're competing with fewer dollars up against transportation alternative projects.
So it's a formality, in effect, that this committee exists.
It is.
Because
We,
there's no nothing they can do.
the Planning Commission, in working with an exploratory committee, determined that it was of importance to the region. The TAC was very excited about the byway and the potential to do a corridor management plan, and that's what we're in the process of developing right now. Where it goes from there, the whole program is designed to be, you know, a grassroots type effort. It's really up to the communities. I think the participants that are working on the management plan are stellar. We've got professional planners in the group, people that are passionate. In terms of the byway for the Lakes region, to me it's a perfect marriage that, you know, we have what the program is designed to promote, and it reaches into the realm of economic development. People visit this area.
From Tamworth, I have a real issue.
Okay.
If you look at the map of the route, it goes up Route 16 and takes a left at Route 25, and it doesn't continue. You don't see Shakorowa Mountain. I mean, if you're really thinking about scenic byways for people to know where to go or whatever, it's sort of offensive to me that it takes a left at Route 25 where there's no view. It just goes and continues back to the lake again, this lake. But I find that, I mean, Shakorowa Mountain is a big deal. and the lake and the view and the whatever and historical things that happen along, it's just simply not on the map. And I just,
Well, for better or for worse, we decided to start with the byway as it was identified in the 1990s. There's always that opportunity to make changes. The idea was, this is a starting point for the development of the plan, and input like that, I think, is very beneficial to the whole process. And that's likely a recommendation to explore, you know, the byway as it was laid out in the 90s and how that fits with today's
I mean, we have
circumstances.
a quarter has the picture of Comeau Mountain on it.
Right.
Did you know that?
I didn't realize that.
Yep, last year.
You'd think it would go up to the cank
Exactly.
and go,
I mean, go around
go over
further,
the,
you
go
know.
over the cank and then come down
Could we
the
have a
creek.
motion that we encourage that?
Yeah,
I've tried to make sure that Tamworth had a representative on that committee for that reason. Not, you know, for other reasons too, but take it from me, that's my recommendation, that it go further. Expands people's scenic view.
I recall asking why some things in Tuftonboro were like they are on the scenic byway, and somebody told me that the communities had decision authority on that originally.
Yeah, and that program has bounced around between state departments. It hasn't been as cohesive as it might be, but early on, when the byways were being identified, communities had an opportunity to promote sections within their community as being on the byway. And looking back historically at some of those letters, it's hit and miss in terms of what's represented on the map today and what was supported by the communities.
So it's possible that Tamworth actually made that decision about whether
It's possible,
16
but
would be
you
on
know,
there or
the record keeping wasn't very good, and I haven't seen a lot of letters of support for individual sections from Lakes Region communities, and I think that's probably true of others. So how the ultimate determination was made of where the byway is laid out today, that's been a topic of discussion.
But isn't it simply a change on the map?
It can be a change on the map. It should be endorsed by the community, and there should be some healthy discussion in the management plan about why it's not as effective as it could be, or why the layout that existed in the 90s doesn't work today.
Because I agree with Bob, it should, if it went up to the keg, then it could still circle around, it just is a little bit further for people to know that, oh, we should follow this map and see all these things.
How do you think we should address the desire to change that, Mike?
I think is a recommendation in the management plan that we're currently working on. This has been an ongoing dialogue. There's plenty of communities that they question if change is possible, and it certainly is. Our focus really has been on developing the plan as opposed to trying to restructure the byway. To me, it's right after the plan gets developed, part of an ongoing dialogue about what does this mean in terms of the changes.
So we'll have more opportunity in our communities, we'll have more opportunity?
Yes, and we've had William Rose from DOT's, the Scenic Byway State Coordinator, out at several meetings. There's no opposition at the state level to changing what the byway is.
Right. So basically, if all of you say, let's change this map to just have the road go a little bit further to be what is the scenic byway that we're promoting, that's not that hard to do.
No.
Well, I recommend that, and we all do, as a board.
Put it in writing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Would you like that as a motion, or is this discussion adequate for you?
I think it's adequate.
Okay. Yes, sir?
When you change it one way, you eliminated a piece of road that's also pretty. When you first turn left onto 25, that's not too exciting, but pretty soon you're in pretty country.
True, but they could have two roads. They could say, well, take a left if you want, or you could continue and,
Either or.
yeah. People aren't prevented from going on 25, but they could have the road, the color of the map thing could also continue if someone chose to.
As they could with any other road in the state.
No, but they don't know that they could. They don't know that that's part of the deal, you know what I mean?
I'm a little confused.
Well, you're from Andover.
That's right.
Whoa!
I should say something, I just don't know what to say. Well, why don't we, Mike is the project leader for this segment, and he's heard this discussion, and as the project moves along, you can re-engage our communities and the people in this. Yes, Jean?
Would it be possible to have a plan of this byway? I have no idea what this byway is. I've never seen anything that marks it.
Yeah, I should have brought a map down. I didn't know it was going to be on for discussion,
Right.
but basically it encircles Lake Winnipesaukee with two spurs that go off, one to the west to Ashland and one to the east to Route 16.
And then, you know where we drive on 25? It stops right there. Doesn't go any further.
And then there's a couple smaller loops in the Laconia area around the Weirs and Parade Road. So, but basically it's the route around Lake Winnipesaukee.
Yeah. Now, I would very much like to see that. Is it the same as the bicycle path route?
No, but there's been plenty of discussion about, you know, bikeability and some of the major events that take place on the route. What does that look like? The other thing is, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Even though the byway program doesn't necessarily have funding, we don't know if it will ever be resurrected as it was in the past. I think the recommendations in the plan are instrumental in providing supporting information for DOT grants and other sources of funding. So not all is lost.
But to comment on your point, yes, there are great views on 25 eventually, but also think of the views that are on the Kangamangas that one sees.
Well, I understand, I love the tank.
But that's not included in this at all, and it should be if we're promoting the scenic advantages to people who'd like to take advantage of where we're recommending that they experience our state. We could give them a quarter. That's
As a
attached to the
suggestion,
map.
why don't, in part of the tech element of our commission meeting in March, why don't we ask Mike to show that, so that communities and yourselves and all the commissioners can begin thinking about it.
Right.
And can begin talking within their communities so that we can get the input back.
Right.
So to make it a better program. Because this darn funding thing, you never know. You know, 1 minute there's absolutely no money, and then the next minute, here it comes from Washington. And so to be prepared for it, you know, shovel-ready approach kind of thing, I think is very important.
And you're proposing to add that stretch of road
Yeah.
to the byway, not to replace the one that you
No, not to
already have in
replace,
there.
no, but just to
That
have it,
might
like
be-
you said, there's spurs around this or
Right.
that or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is a spur that goes
Right.
further, if they so choose.
So that's
You can
great.
take a ride someday and
No, he likes it, no, he knows it's nice.
Spurs you on, John.
Okay, that's,
Thank
we're
you.
we're
Thank you for
probably on
entertaining
the
that.
track.
Throw cookies.
take a left turn.
I appreciate your time on that.
No, that's very important. Yes, sir.
I don't think we're
Regardless
ready
of
now.
money, it is an issue for some towns to see scenic travel as a resource for their economy. And on the other side, there are individuals who feel that it will affect their freedom of what to do on their adjoining property. For example, there's a state regulation that if you want to cut some trees over 14 inches in diameter, I think it is, along a scenic byway, you have to report that to the local conservation commission. There's no vote, but it has to be reported. And it's just, some developers consider that to be an irritant. I think there are other regulations, I just happen to have experienced that one.
Oh, I see.
The only real oversight that the byway program provides is for off-premise signage. And so the concern being the proliferation of signs along the scenic route that you're trying to promote. Scenic roads are different, and they do have that tree cutting regulation associated with them. I'm not certain that the byway covers anything beyond the location of signs, off-premise signs in particular. In other words, if your business is 2 miles away from the byway and wants to promote by having a sign on the byway, there is oversight for that.
Thank you. Let's move forward. The New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority, I didn't see Tink have a, there is a report in here?
No report in here.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
So it sounds like the last one.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything new.
I've lost the stamina.
They're involved in a lot of issues in Concord right now. There are different bills in that affect the way they're structured, and the governor has come out for the line, and so in my opinion right now it's a Concord issue. Any questions about Tink? Okay.
Do you know, is there any plan for that to make it beyond Concord, or is there that being contemplated? I mean, would it ever come up this way? I know we used to have rail.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any place to play.
The feasibility study did cover beyond Concord, Concord North. I haven't looked at that portion of the report, but that's in the distant future if we even make it up to Concord. So the focus is the southern part.
Right, which makes sense.
Okay. The executive report was communicated. Any questions about the executive report? Mike, do you have any comments that you'd like to make about it?
No, the only thing that I'd say is we review and revise this. It's a lengthy list. To me, it's impressive for a 6-person organization. One of the things that we've talked about is how to narrow this down. We get into quite a bit of detail on particular individual items that we worked on, and so that's been an ongoing dialogue. Can we keep it down to a reasonable number of pages? We do a lot of work, and everybody's interested in making sure that they are represented in the report that way.
I think I applaud your efforts of simplifying it, to take the nitty-gritty out, but to keep the substance there, so that, because this does get disseminated to our reps too, and it's very important as our care and feeding of our representatives. There's such a turnover there that many of them don't know what regional planning commissions do, and the more that we can give them information to help them understand what we do is very important to us. So, no, I applaud that. Thank you. Opportunities and challenges, region grant applications. Mike?
Yes, I mentioned that we applied for 3 grants this past month. One was through the Pardo Foundation. Unbeknownst to me, there was a February 6th deadline, and Pardo reached out to us as a past recipient. We've applied for and received Pardo funds for the last 5 or 6 years to do works with specific communities in the region. They asked if we intended to apply, and I said that, or to extend the funding for the project we're currently working on, which is the Natural Resources chapter of the Laconia Master Plan. I said no, but we may wish to apply for something else, and that's when they said the deadline had passed. So we scrambled. They encouraged us if we were interested in another project and gave us a little bit more time. We scrambled and we worked with the folks in Guilford, John Eyre in particular, to identify a project of importance there. And so we applied for, I think, $13,000 to $16,000 to work with the community in the development of their geographic information system. Guilford has put money aside to promote GIS in their community over the course of the last several years, and John had expressed an interest in having some insight into how best to spend those funds and maybe do some training with folks in the community and tie it in with some online mapping. So we probably won't hear back until the beginning of May, whether we're successful or not. But I looked at it, if the foundation is reaching out to us and being encouraging, that we ought to do our best to try to apply. And I would say a special thanks to Dave Jeffers as well, who's worked on writing the grants. He does a fine job at that, and really hopped to when we had a short notice. The other two grants are related to community preparedness and climate change. One is community readiness assessments, and the other is preventing health effects from severe weather. Both of those grants were developed in partnership with the Lake Region Partnership for Public Health. There's 5 elements associated with them. We put in requests for funding for two of the 5 elements, and the funds would come from the Department of Public Health in New Hampshire. We were supposed to hear back 2 weeks ago. We haven't heard. I did talk to some of the other executive directors in the Lrpcs who thought the time frame was a little bit too tight for them to apply. Could start as soon as April 1st and finish up by September 30th. Having previously talked to Warren about the potential for bringing other people in if we needed staff, we thought we would hop to and apply for those grants as well, and they total approximately $27,000 combined, the 2 grants.
Excellent. Climate change. Any other comments about these grants? Yes, John?
I had a question, just to Mike. Any reference to those grant applications in the executive report?
Yes, there would be. And I don't know particularly where that's located.
All 3 would be under one line item somewhere, right?
Well, probably this report may not cover the period when we worked on the Part O grant. You'll see that in the next report. And much of the work on the other 2 grants was probably a little bit beyond this reporting period as well.
Those would be wonderful things to put in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they're not in here, they will be in the next report.
Would you like now to talk about the UPWP?
We're in the process of...
Could you explain what that is?
Yes, it's the Unified Planning Work Program. Each of the regional planning commissions has a 2-year contract with the Department of Transportation to do transportation planning within their region and statewide. Our contract is up June 30th, and so we're in the process of submitting a proposal to DOT for fiscal years 16 and 17. I've submitted a draft. We've had preliminary discussion and received feedback from Bill Watson at DOT, and I've submitted a revised draft. We're in the process of arranging meetings face-to-face with folks at DOT and Federal Highway Administration, and that meeting will take place likely in the next 2 weeks to further refine the proposal. biggest change with the funding this year, or for the upcoming years, is that the match requirement, the 20% match requirement, was in the past able to be funded through toll credits, and that funding has been cut in half. So 10% toll credits, 10% cash match from the organizations. And we've had lengthy discussion about that with Jeff before he left, and what the implications are in terms of the reach of what we propose and the implications to have to pay the match through dues. Put in a status quo budget. DOT mentioned yesterday at the Transportation Planning Collaborative meeting that they've put in for a status quo budget as well to fund what they have in the past 2 years, level across all the planning commissions. And as we pointed out to Bill, well, that's 10% less though, isn't it? And he agreed it is. So somehow, we're gonna have to cover that gap that we haven't experienced before. It's approximately $407,000 that we have in our current scope that we proposed over 2 years.
Yeah, this is the largest program that we depend upon. Just keep going forward, I guess.
The only concern, in terms of concerns, is that this process may conclude before Jeff's return, and DOT has indicated if I'm going to be representing the Planning Commission, I might need signatory authority for grants in particular, and so there may be some paperwork associated with that has to be filled out. If we can postpone it until Jeff returns,
whatever's necessary.
okay.
Great. Any other questions to Mike on this? We put down here a lease agreement. It's for our office space upstairs, and Mike has been working with the superintendent here. And it is a process that will take a while, but could you brief the board, Mike?
Yeah, the superintendent's office called to ask for a meeting, and I mentioned that Jeff is out, but I did want to meet to see if we're still in good standing. Our lease agreement ends at the end of June, and all indications are they are truly appreciative of the organization being a neighbor in the building, and want to continue that. They do have a proposal to take a portion of that space and repurpose it for a meeting room, and possibly put an elevator in. Those details, they indicated, haven't all been worked out at this point. It's something that if we need the entire space, they're willing to do that for a shorter term of lease than what we have right now, 3 years as opposed to 5 years. But if we don't need the entire space, they could start as soon as this summer and with some renovations. I had asked for what the cost would be, the monthly cost, and we haven't received that back for the 2 options. And hope to hear back from the superintendent sometime soon.
I take it as good news, because it will give the both the school district here and Lrpc an opportunity to look at that entire space and to determine best use of it and reconfigure it, and if they do want to put a larger meeting room up there, that might be very, very good for us. Give us another opportunity, because as we mentioned, the TAC can't meet in here, and then to look at the other space and to reconfigure it is just it's a nice opportunity. And as Mike said, we're just trying to not delay, but wait on some of the key decisions until Jeff returns full-time, so that he can take the project on and figure it out. So the good news is we don't have to move, and but the only thing permanent is change, and change will affect upstairs. And from my perspective, I think it's gonna be a positive thing, that we can get a more professional looking environment.
The other,
Go ahead.
the other good news is that regardless of the decision to use the entire space or a portion of it, the superintendent plans to paint the space that we have, replace the carpets, and they're talking about putting some tile in as opposed to trying to keep up cleaning the carpets, and to renovate the bathrooms. So it's something that's on the horizon as well.
So there's a lot of good things percolating up. Updates and announcements, the March Commission meeting. We still, and thank you, Steve, for sending in possible speakers. And Dean Anson is working on, he has a couple, and so we just haven't resolved the speaker profile. But Mike has asked a local DPW director to serve on that group. We were sort of thinking that it should be from the perspective of federal, state, and local, talking about the hazard mitigation plans. Do you have anything further?
I do. I reached out to Director Plummer at the Office of Safety, and he is unable to attend on March 30th to make a presentation, but he mentioned that Lee Cheney from his office and potentially Marilyn Hilliard from FEMA Region 1, and he's going to coordinate them and provide names of who he comes up with.
Oh, that's excellent.
For the presentation. Dave Ford is the local representative from Wolfboro.
Yeah, Dave Ford's on the TAC. He's the DPW director over in Wolfboro. He's very articulate and a very good speaker. And plus we're getting closer and closer to freedom this way too, Gene.
Ooh. Where is the meeting?
It's going to be at Town Hall, and the snow date is April 1st.
In Marlboro.
Marlboro.
Oh, okay.
And-
Marlboro Safety Building?
And Town Hall.
Oh, the town hall,
Yeah,
okay.
the snow date, April 1st, will
Oh,
be the
okay.
Marlboro Safety Building.
Now, the town hall is you go up 25 and you turn up by the general store, and then you turn right into the parking lot there?
From Meredith, yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Super. Does anyone, we were thinking, Mike and I were talking about, because part of our ongoing challenge is to involve commissioners more, and so we're going to add this section of the TAC activities so that they can understand all that process. And then I asked him to put on the agenda a roundtable, a quick roundtable at the end of the meeting, similar to what we do here, that the different commissioners can talk about any major projects that they have going on in their communities. And also, it could be an opportunity if a community was working on something and wanted information from somebody else, some other community might already have done it, and then they can link up and talk with it. Just trying to add an element in there so it's not cut and dry and that people just sit there and not talk. Because as we do here, I think at the end of the meetings, every single one of us has been engaged in some subject or some conversation or something, and it's better off for not only Lrpc but our communities as well. So trying to take that concept and apply it to our commission meeting, and we'll see what the hell happens. Okay, the April Executive Board meeting, you have listed here, is there a reason we have that listed?
I don't know what the reason would be.
You're not trying to cut the muffins out, are you? That would not.
No, that would not do it all.
No,
That
no,
would
no.
make John very happy.
Yeah. We'll plan our regular April Executive Board meeting here. There won't be as much snow on the ground, probably. Yeah,
We
probably.
hope.
Okay, then our annual meeting, potential speakers, there we're going to focus on climate change. Oh, those were the group that you had, yeah. And we're still trying to collect, and Dean Anson has a couple suggestions, he just has to get them in. So we haven't finalized on the speaker of that. Is everybody comfortable that you think that's a direction that we should go on climate change?
Sure.
Okay. Facility location, has there been any, have you been able to research that?
Yep, Marie has tentatively reserved the Chase House. And we also got information back about Hobbs Inn and Brewery at the request of one of the commissioners. Yeah, there are some limitations with that space, audio and visual for a larger group is not real practical. If it was under 75 people, I think you'd be able to have a screen and whatnot. So it seemed like the Chase House was the preferred area.
Yeah.
We can lock that in at any time if that's the board's desire.
It's the feeling of the group. I like the Chase House a lot, I think it's a good size facility, it's convenient. Is that acceptable?
Yep.
What is it? Where is it?
Right down here. It's the one on this side of the street, not
Office.
the big one.
Church Landing.
Yeah, right, isn't it like where we had the party for camp?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Ah,
That facility
I
has
know
that
where that
smaller
is.
lobby
Yes.
to it and then a nice room. One of the things about matching room size, it's better to have a smaller room full than it is to have a big room
yes.
that appears empty. Good. Slate of officers, Wayne?
In your packet, you've got, or maybe pass them out today, the full slate as proposed, and it's the existing executive board that's here today with the same officers. I've contacted all of you, plus the two that aren't here today, and got positive results, positive answers. And I looked in the policy of the Lrpc, and we're at the max of the executive board. I mean, this is what the policy calls out. It's 4 officers, 4 area commissioners, and 4 at-large commissioners.
This is really a good group too, as I've expressed. We're balanced out geographically, and we're balanced out talent-wise and everything. And I'm really appreciative of everybody agreeing to continue to participate.
Good board, good board.
So should we have a motion that this be put to the membership? Or
So moved.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor raise their right hand. Any opposed? Anybody voting against themselves? No? Well, thank you, the motion passes. This will be our slate for next year. That's wonderful. Kim Mayor's Award and Awards of Excellence. Dean Anson is heading up this activity for us. He volunteered last meeting, and he wasn't able to be here today. He has a medical issue appointment that he's attending. Mike, could you give us any activity in this area?
We did fill out an award of excellence for Sheldon Morgan, who's the retired DPW director from Guilford. He also served since 1985, I believe, on the Transportation Advisory Committee, and has long been a chair. The community has supported him in his retirement to represent them, and he continues on as the chair. And he's also coordinated HHW, the site in Guilford for a number of years. Marie is probably more in tune with other activity, but that's what I was engaged in.
Have there been other submissions?
For the Award of Excellence, we have Boys and Girls Club of the Lakes Region, and then we have the Crucon Cruises.
Oh,
that was
excellent.
nominated, and those are the only ones that I've received so far,
Okay.
as far as that goes. And on the Kim Ayers Award, we have Peter Jensen of Moultonborough, Jane Kellogg, and she's from Campton. And those are the only 2 that I've received on that.
Peter Jensen is deceased.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
We had
Peter
him,
Jensen is deceased.
we had him last year. He was nominated last year as well.
Yes. It mentions that in the letter from the town.
Yeah, I think we had them on there last year too. Yeah.
Have we ever awarded one to a deceased person? Well, the point being, if all of you could, talk within your communities and get more nominations, it would be very good. The hardest one is always the Comeau Award. It's generally multiple, and we have to decide between. And so if you could, between now and April, beat the drums and find out if there are others that should be nominated. At this stage of the game, we'd like as complete of an application as possible, but if you don't have time to do a complete one, or whoever wants to nominate them, at least get their name and the concept into the hopper so that Dean can make recommendations to us. We have to have this locked by when? When would we have to have it locked? It would have to be locked at least by May, right? That'd be the absolute latest.
Normally we try to have all of the applications reviewed by Dean and whoever's assisting him, and then at the May executive board meeting, it's discussed amongst the board and then made a decision.
Okay. So we're right on track, but we just can't goof off. Thank you. Let's see, board roundtable. Should we start Northfield?
Can I make a comment on the global climate thing for the annual meeting? I think rather than just global climate and what's happening to Iceland and polar bears, I think the focus should be, global climate change, the regional reality. I mean,
Yeah, how does it impact
in
this
terms of
region?
boots on the ground, if you will, what does it mean to us? What is happening and what issues do we need to be concerned with? Is it affecting planning issues? Like, I know it's affected the criteria for defining flood zones and things like that. So it's having a real effect on policy and planning. And in order to be clear, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, in the global context, we're talking about what does it mean to us.
Well, that's excellent.
And put that in the title somehow, I think.
Okay. No, that's,
Great idea.
again, wise thought from a wise elder.
From a wise ass.
Okay.
Remember, he said that.
Yeah. Wayne?
You were about to.
Yeah, you were gonna say.
Northfield had its elections yesterday. We have 3,000 registered voters in Northfield. We had 289 people vote.
Oh, God.
Off-year election, no national elections.
Yeah.
Very, very slow turnout for all day. We opened our polls at 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 at night.
That's all you got was
289.
I don't know how many, we didn't get too many either.
I don't know what our numbers are, but from what I heard, it was very similar. A couple thousand people, it was less than 100 people a week.
Steve?
Our town
It's a nice
meetings
day,
tonight,
too. They all
we've
come
been
out.
through Tuftonboro recently, you've seen all the yes and no signs on the side of the road relative to the library, which extends to the potential police station and the old library, which extend, and the possibility of expanding the town hall for the police as well. So, yes and no activity. One other interesting, I mentioned that there'd been a question in the past about the capital reserve fund. Last year, the town voted to create, I think it was a $30,000 capital reserve fund for the library project, and gave it actually said that the selectmen would have discretion on how to spend it. And that part of it was debated, and an amendment offered to take that part out, and it didn't pass. Even though the budget committee back in January questioned their authority. I think actually the budget committee goes back to November. And the town solicitor and the DAR was brought in, and they all back up the selectmen having authority. Well, then, so that was all taken care of, and the money was requested from the trustees of the trust fund, and they decided to question it. So it was held up for another month and a half. So that's the politics of Tufton Borough.
Wow. Jean?
Last year at town meeting, Freedom voted to have a new form of holding town meetings in an effort to try to make it possible for younger people to vote. So this year is the first time that this has been tried, and I don't know the numbers in total yet who turned out, but certainly it was a busy place. The Main Street was very busy. Yesterday, which was the day of the ballot vote. Now, on the ballot were the people who were running for office and the 6 zoning ordinance changes that were proposed. And I learned this morning that all of the zoning changes were approved, which I think is interesting because that one of them works with a change in the definition of the 10% lot coverage that is allowed in Freedom. And also one is the issue I brought up last month about using the state requirements for shoreline zoning as satisfying the towns up to a certain size. This also passed, so that I think will be interesting to see how that works out. But the second part of our town meeting happens on Saturday, and it happens at 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And this will be the first time that we've had this, and at this time, and with this group, different group of people in anticipation, and anyway.
Well, what did you change in your voting to get additional voters there?
Well, they're hoping, or anticipating, that the additional voters will come because it's a Saturday.
Oh, you're talking the town meeting?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Well, we always have our town meeting on Saturday, yeah.
No, we always had
Oh,
it.
at night? Yeah, that's tough.
We did too, I think.
Pat?
Well, it's interesting that these 200 quote voters happened. Our town had 287.
Woo! Out of how many?
Well, I don't know exactly, but I do know the population is 2,800 total, so therefore,
Oh, you're higher, because my population is 4,900.
yeah, so therefore it was a reasonable amount, I guess. It's also interesting, and one can understand why there might not have been more voters, because almost everything was, nobody was opposed. There was just one person or whatever running for office, so I think a lot of people might have said, why bother? Because it wouldn't make any difference, you know. Anyway, and our town meeting is this evening at 7, and there are some issues that are going to be coming up that are like municipal issues of like physical place of where our meetings are, that there's some opposition of using the old townhouse versus the new town building. But anyway, another thing that's going on, which I'm going to talk about for a second, from the Economic Development Commission in Tamworth, a plan this year, and we don't have a date exactly yet, but we're planning it. Our concern, as all of you probably are, about employment and opportunities for people and staying in our state and all that. So we're planning to have, to think about the fact that in the old days, the way it worked was there'd be an apprentice that would go to the blacksmith shop and learn from a kid upward or whatever. So we've thought that we're going to kind of take a survey of a lot of companies, different kinds of companies, artisans, whatever, to see who would be willing to have an intern or apprentice that they would help, and then pair them with people either who'd like to improve their lot or change careers or whatever. So at least it'd be that. I have no idea how it's going to work, but it's, you know, and ironically, I was at a chamber, a Greater Washington, Mount Washington Chamber after hours thing a couple of weeks ago, and after it was all over, the director of that chamber and I happened to have just a casual conversation with 2 people who are opening in Conway, North Conway, the Sea Dog restaurant or something, and just chatting, you know, they're at the bar, and of course I'm gonna be there. And, and one said, hey, I'd be happy to have someone to intern, that would be an intern for like management. And I'm thinking, I didn't even think about that, that's great. But I've checked with a person who owns a restaurant, and encouraging them to, as a chef, he's the chef as well as the owner. You know, and so that you never know where these companies, and I want this to be regional. I don't want it just to be Tamworth, I want it to be that, by region, I'm talking about maybe 5 communities. We're inviting those people in 5 communities who are looking for jobs. And maybe others will come too, I don't know.
Excellent.
And then, but it's the big thing on us will be checking with companies who would be willing to let, and we're gonna figure out what's a form that people fill out about it. And obviously the person who would be hiring has to have, will have a criteria of who they want or what they're looking for. So that's what we're trying.
You may want to touch base with the community college, Lakes Region Community College. They may have now as course credit, if students went through a program like you're trying to create, they may be able to get course credit at Lakes Region.
Okay.
And in that process, they may have a lot of those forms and things like that, you know, the things that you need, that you just can't have apprentices be sweep the floor type things,
No, I
but
know.
they'd be exposed to different. They may already have a lot of that stuff.
They might have companies that they know would be, that they might be suggesting to their students even.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Barbara in Marlboro?
I think, we didn't have a very good turnout either, but I'm not sure how many, you know, when you can drive into the parking lot and find a space, you know there's not gonna be a lot of people there. But we had a lot of cookies at the bake sale, chocolate chippies. And, our town meeting will be Saturday the 14th, 9 o'clock. And I think one of the, maybe the big things is this, town administrator, position that you have to vote on and stuff like that, so that's probably a little biggie. But other than that, it's quiet.
Thank you. Sir, Mr. Cotton?
Well, I just have 2 items. First, I don't know why Barbara didn't bring some of those chocolate chips.
I should have.
Checker car.
I think I'd just like to mention that as of the end of December, Andover had no outstanding debt obligations, period.
Whoa.
Wow.
So are you gonna start up again, an investment? Because debt's not bad if you invested in something that's gonna improve your communities.
We're just fine.
John, Guilford?
We have about 7,500 people in Guilford. We had 800 and some odd turnout for voting yesterday. And you can still set off fireworks in the town of Guilford. That's the good news, I guess. That was a big to-do on our on our ballot. We had one of our planning board members running for selectman. He actually got elected. Beat out the budget committee member by just 7 votes though, so we'll probably have a recount.
Oh.
But that's about it, not too much to report from Guilford today.
Did Scott Dunn, was he elected selectman and Guilford?
I don't know. I don't know.
You know, Gilmanton did not pass their budget.
Really?
And they're in SB 2.
So they go with their default budget. Huh,
I saw that on the news this morning, turned on.
that's interesting.
Bob, Holderness?
Town meeting tonight, no major issues.
Wow. Steve?
603 voted.
Wow.
We've got Saturday fireworks at our town meeting because of teacher contracts, which are really fired up. We are also be taking on the town of Hill because they're splitting the students to finish from, I think it's sophomore year and to senior year, will finish at Franklin. The rest of them from K through you know, from 6th through 8th, or 6th through 9th, will be coming to Newfoundland.
Wow.
So that's made because there was a separation between Hill and Franklin going on, and then Winnisquam tried to bid for it. And I mean, this thing went on.
They coerced us to bid for it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It went back
They
and
knew
forth.
all along they weren't gonna go with Winnisquam, but they just wanted to see a second bid.
Yeah, I guess that's where it went. So that's going on. The one thing I will only come out with is there has been a lot of talk about the international or foreign countries coming into bid or take over ridge lines for windmills. Alexandria put a stay to their area. Ashland has done it. Groton didn't do it and is trying to backpedal right now. They were given, or will be given, $300,000 to decommission their windmills of 24. And it takes $1 million each to decommission.
Wow.
They got, what's the word, stiffed? Yeah, this Portuguese company is really good at what they do. The question was asked, would Lrpc endorse, how am I supposed to put this? Or not favor, let's call it that way, not favor windmill farms in our area. Because it's what it does and how it's done and where they want to put them. If you really want to see what goes on, there's a lot of photographs available by the Newfound Windmill Group who have opposed this. And it's the devastation of what it does. 4 acres per windmill is literally bald to the point where blasting is done, and they put these, I guess they're 10 by 10 concrete foundations. They'll go anywhere from 4 to 10 feet down, and they all disappear after they've dropped in these windmills. But it's becoming a major issue in our area, and of course people are now, because of devaluation of property. It is really, it's moving faster than Groton ever thought would happen. They thought they were going to get a lot of tax benefits from this, and people said, oh good, we'll move there. Now they're putting up for sale signs sooner than later. So,
Don't they have more than one company in there?
oh yes, we have another one trying to Danbury into, well, was supposed to go Danbury into Groton again through the backside of Alexandria. And they were going to just take, they were going to be 500 feet, 500 to 550 feet high. They're huge. And there is I believe it's a gentleman from the state of Vermont, scientist or whatever, that has done a study about windmills and really where they're at today. They're starting to backpedal and say, it's not what it's really cracked up to be. And solar panel farms are coming slowly back in, where you can, you know, on rooftops or in a very improper building lot to put solar panel farms. So that's coming out. It's been asked. I was called by 3 people that are on this committee. Would we consider favoring or not favoring? Because the next place they're going to, Lrpc.
When you say some towns have acted like Ashland, what did they act?
They put in a stay of no,
No foreign company?
well, it's the windmill
Ordinance.
system, or what is it?
It's an ordinance they put in.
Ordinance, yeah, it's an RBO or RLB.
Yeah, rights-based ordinance
Right.
that they put in, yeah.
And what does it disallow?
It disallows these to be put literally on public property. Because that's where some of these people look at it.
Public, yeah, but
Public.
you have public, not private, private's okay.
Or private, excuse me, private property. Because that's, and or public, because we don't have, a lot of these mountain ridges are owned by the state, some
And
of
that's
them.
legal? I thought the feds had.
I don't know how they're doing it, but believe me, Alexandria just did it. I haven't read theirs. Ashland's got one.
That's
I have a
why-
copy
that's
of it
why I
at
asked.
home.
Do you have
I thought
theirs?
I thought there was
Yeah.
a legal barrier against
Either,
doing that.
Well, whichever way, but I do know that this company is focusing right now, if they can't get it through us, they're coming to Winnipesaukee. And they'll pick anywhere on the north end to get where they can put these.
It would be legal in the White Mountain National Forest, but the environmental hurdles are
Exactly, that's the
really
other side.
steep, and it would not be legal on the higher mountaintops, which are already in the management plan as other uses. So it's, I think it's unlikely that you'll see any on the White Mountains top.
Because Antrim, I think, is now put a stay in theirs, so no more will come in. And it's just because of what it has done environmentally. Because I know our study for water around Newfound Lake has been really done extensively as to what impact it's done. Because it's a trickle-down situation.
Given that it is an issue, this might be a good topic for a meeting, is what's the legal
Yeah, what's the
structure?
legal
What's the legal
capability?
That's right.
foundation that you work
How
from?
can you keep 'em out?
So, yeah, I wasn't aware you could keep them out.
Put them on Mount Washington. Get a lot of wind up there.
That's a really good idea, because before anybody can form any opinions or take any votes or anything, you really have to understand the issue.
Right.
And
Because Kim originally was asked this years ago as they were marching into Groton. I remember him talking to me about it. And at that time, I wasn't really here, per se, it was on with FEMA. And boy, when they came in, boom, they had them in real quick. And boy, I'll tell you, it's
It actually was, I used to live in Groton Hollow, and the process went on for, I'd say, 4.5, 5 years. It was very low profile, and the community, it got out in the community, and there was a lack of interest, I think. Rumney was very interested because they would have a major impact road-wise, but very little tax advantage. But that didn't go anywhere. But Groton was almost
They were looking for
non-existent.
tax relief ASAP because their tax bills weren't holding or being paid, and they were starving to death. They were having a real big issue on their budgets, and even for their school situation. But I do know that it has made a major impact to Groton now as to what do they do to decommission these, because their life expectancy is roughly 15 years, and then they have to start replacing either blades or gearing for them. So, and then it gets it's equipment that you have to get back up there, where they,
Can I say something? Do you mind? Michelle Sanborn is the head of the Right Base Ordinance, and they meet in Bristol monthly at your library. So I don't know if you wanted to have her come and talk to you about what she's doing, or she's very, very informative. So.
Because Lori Lerner, who's really on top of going to the to the state and testifying, has brought in some outside, very impressive, let's call them scientists in regards to that, and electrical engineers.
I don't have my schedule with me on commission meetings. We have the one in March. Our annual meeting's in June. Do we have a commission meeting between March and June? We don't. When do we start up again? September or October?
Yes.
She might come down like for a weekly meeting or something. I have her email and her phone number if you want it.
It would be, personally, because what it has caused, you talk about voting for everything else, this is really, Alexandria has really put a lot of effort in. If I was that company from Portugal showing up, which they did, the gauntlet of people that showed up to really make them feel uncomfortable because they came in their stretch limos. And, oh yeah, I'm telling you. They were, it's almost like what you see going on in Ferguson. It wasn't quite that bad, but boy, these people were lined up and really made an impact on them. And they basically packed their bags and left because they were literally not too comfortable with what they were confronted with. You couldn't get a parking space in downtown Alexandria town.
Wow.
That's how packed it was.
Wow.
Because they came from all over, New York, Connecticut,
Yeah.
Rhode Island, people did,
Wow.
that have property. I mean, people came back from vacations to get to this meeting. They were dead
Very
serious.
Well, why don't we all think about this in April? Let's come up with a plan for how to address this area.
Because I can get Lori Lerner, because
Well, we
Yes,
just
you-
can't, we need to be balanced. We
Yeah.
need to not just hear or,
Pros and cons. You
yeah,
gotta-
we need the pros and cons so that, and we need to do it in a way that as many of our communities participate as possible. So let's be thinking about it and come up with a plan in April to how to
I know
address
why.
this.
There's a state authority for site
Yes?
these facilities, and they
White's boss.
basically have veto power.
That's the SEC.
Yeah, and as an attempt to change their process and their authority, I think somebody associated with that would have would have already established knowledge about all that has to be done.
Oh, I see. That's
We
excellent.
had them
Yeah.
present to us, the SEC,
And who on it?
a couple, 3 years ago.
Is Jeff on that committee, the site committee? He's on.
I'm not certain that he is, but
It's called site
discussions
evaluation committee.
Yeah.
we've had
That's the
have
big
been
argument.
about changing that process and, you know, as opposed to the planning commission making a statement in favor of or against, really picking at the process to make changes that allow communities to have their say in a more meaningful way.
Oh, I see.
I mean, some of this has been determined in the state plans as in the public interest. And those sites have been pre-identified as prime across the state. How do you interact with that greater interest in terms of what it means to your own community? I can find out a little bit more about the status of
The communities want us to, but we hate to be in a position of a group of members want something and another group doesn't, and for us to take sides like that. It's because we're a member-driven organization, but to understand the issue and to help our communities is very definitely what we should be doing.
Yeah, I think something along what we discussed, the legal underpinning for what can and can, but also lessons learned. You know, we've been in this program now for 5 years or so, or whatever. What do we learn from the process? And I think that would be, stay away from site-specific arguments, but the legal underpinning and what have we learned would be.
Well, there's homework for everybody.
And what can you do, because we did this, and I'm not sure, Mike, you helped, I think, this was probably about a year ago, when Freedom wanted to know, because they were very concerned about this, and the planning board and the selectmen. And so, one planning board member, Peter Parks, investigated here, with the staff here, to find out exactly what towns could do, which, and there isn't very much, because it's mostly the state who has the regulations. Towns just at the moment didn't have very much that they could do to.
Oh, this sounds great. Really, this is important. Thank you.
Did you mention Danbury being involved in this process?
They've been approached between the Alexandria and Danbury project, which was I think it was 25 or 28 towers, and going on to their property line or over into Danbury. But they have not put a stay or any type of RPO or ROP, or whatever it's called, yeah. For
RBL, yeah.
and they haven't that I know of, but I do know Alexandria last night did vote to protect themselves.
I wonder if we should contact, our Charlotte McIver, that Danbury, the most active Danbury person. Wonder what she knows about this, to the
Yes.
effect of Danbury.
What they do would affect you also in Andover, wouldn't it?
The ridgeline of Ragged Mountain.
Ragged Mountain, yeah, Ragged and the
That's
other,
got enough altitude to have a lot of wind.
yeah, or either left or right up there as well now too.
Rosemary?
Our librarian, head librarian, Erin I don't know how to pronounce her name, Arapopoulos or something.
Heck, yeah.
She lives in Alexandria, and so she goes to all the meetings, so she could be helpful too for info.
Well, there's enough here that, if we think about it and come back in April, we'll add it onto the agenda to discuss how we want to approach
Okay.
this.
We'll work on getting some names and numbers.
Yeah. Super.
And looking beyond that, I think it probably hasn't reached that point yet, but someone brought it up. Solar farms are coming.
Oh, yeah, I'm
And
working on two.
They in turn raise a number of issues that most towns have not faced up to yet. And what kinds of zoning, where? The where question again, are you gonna
Good topic.
allow
Good
these
topic.
things? And it's another, they're coming.
Yeah, Guilford had a major application for one, didn't you?
Yeah, it's gonna be about an acre and a half.
Did you approve it?
Which is a lot. No, it was denied by the planning board, appealed, but their appeal was not timely to the ZBA, so we didn't really resolve the question about the use, but I'm sure we'll see something like that again. That's exactly what I was gonna bring up. If it's, I don't know if it detracts too much from the discussion of the wind farm topic, but if it could be melded in there, that would be good too.
I think we could have
Something like
a
that.
series,
Sure.
alternative energy
Right.
issues, and one being wind power, the other being solar
Yeah.
farms, and that could include both commercial scale and private scale. We're seeing large land-based solar units being put up on private property, and that's on our agenda to start dealing with those, and they're just considered ancillary structure. So you put a 35 by 12 foot solar array 35 feet from your neighbor's property line, you have a problem. And I think most towns haven't dealt with that yet either, but it's coming. We've had several in this already.
I drove up to the North Country this weekend, and I was surprised at how many large solar panel arrays that people had on their property.
On the ground, not
Commercial
on the
use,
roof,
yes.
but on the ground. Yeah.
But on the drive here for this meeting today, I realized in Laconia, right near the lake, there is I think it's an apartment building that's got a large solar panel, but it's on the roof. I thought, that's hardly even noticeable. If it were on the ground, it would be unsightly. It's an interesting thing. A slight change in where you put it and how you put it out there can make it.
We have a neighbor that has a big dish for solar power on his lawn, and the dish follows right now it's up flat because it's pooped out.
Yeah.
These are real needs, and let's nail them in April and try to figure out, but I like this series of things focused on alternative energy and understanding it so that each town can decide for themselves how they want to address it. And rather there's a role for Lrpc to take positions on things or to be facilitators for educational sources. That's excellent. Just Laconia, our Main Street Bridge is starting up again next month. There will be major changes in the traffic flow downtown. All kinds of signs up and everything, because this last section of that bridge actually cuts off Beacon West, stops it through the construction process, and so travel coming down from the north through that center will come down Pleasant Street, which is the road by the savings bank, And then that narrow section, the slot section that has always been south to north, is going to become north to south. And they've already taken sections of sidewalks out and things like that. So there'll be a lot of changes down there, but there's a lot of signage going up, and it's the remaining section to be done. The work on the old Beacon West Water Street property, we have Chinberg's working on an old building there, converting it into 35 new market apartments. They're going to put up another building right on the river there by the bridge. That's already approved. I think there's 7 apartment units in there that will be convertible to condos. Across the river, the Laconia Land Trust cleared the land in the fall, and they're beginning immediately in the spring putting up a large facility there for subsidized housing for residents. Not the transient people, but really residents. The Laconia Land Trust has an excellent record of their application process, that they really are providing subsidized housing for people that are considering Laconia or the areas that they're in their home, and not the transit people. Huge difference, huge difference. Our fire station, the work is progressing on that. The $4 million addition is right there on North Main Street. See, the bridge is on. We did pass in the City Council Monday night of this week, adopted and passed the ordinance for the marijuana site, and I'll get a copy of the finalized, so it won't be in draft form, and ask Lrpc to distribute that to all of you so that it can be. We had 2 public hearings, one at the planning board level, and only one person talked about it, and then the city council, they have the option of, when we pass an ordinance to them, they can either pass it recognizing our public hearing, or they can have one themselves, and they had one themselves and nobody spoke to the issue, and so it passed. It's a preventative thing. Let's see. Near the Lakes Region Community College on the back side, there are 2 45-unit apartment buildings being built. One of them is going to be in alliance with the community college, and it's going to be dormitory space for the community college. And on 106, they've already advertised that it's going to be ready in the fall of 2015, and they've just started clearing the site. And so this would be very interesting, is if they actually put students in there in the fall of 2015. Dick Nuss, I never can pronounce his last name. He's a major apartment builder from the Manchester area, very committed to the community. He is putting these buildings up. Let's see. We just approved a 45,000 square foot addition to a major manufacturer in Laconia, in the O'Day Industrial Park, Tilex, and what it's huge. And part of the site plan approval in the CUP was a permeable pavement parking lot. And so ComCog, which has one in, and they're part of the process for getting a certificate of achievement right up here in Moultonborough, has the permeable pavement there. We have one at our church in Guilford, and this will be the first in commercial use of permeable pavement in Laconia. So once it gets done, we can all take a look at that. But it works very well. Laconia has just appointed its 3rd commissioner to Lrpc, Hamilton McLean. He's on our planning board. I recommended him and steered it through. He used to be under Governor Sheehan, the State Director of Energy. And so he's going, and he's an active person, so he's going to be a good addition to the talent pool that we do have as we're talking about alternative energy and other things like this. That's about it that's happening there. Anything else to come? Yes, Judy?
Yeah, I just remembered this as we were going around. One of the items that's on the town meeting for Saturday is a request to fund the continuation of the bicycle path. goes along the Ossipee Lake Road that got stopped by the court case against the town of Freedom. And that has now been somewhat resolved so that it's possible to carry on construction of it. And it's being proposed by a couple of other residents who live down by all of the camps that are along that road, who see this as a real safety factor. And I know that it's something that that Lrpc has been involved in. But I thought it was interesting that the funding is being requested from the town. And it's sort of what maybe will happen in the future with the byways. There's a way of getting these things funded where there isn't any money out there in the state.
Did we announce at the last executive board meeting the award of the transportation alternative grant applications? We did. That Laconia received over $500,000 for the completion of our river walks and the wild trail and sidewalks into our schools. It's major. And then there was a $75,000 grant awarded to Laconia for oh, it was for in the weirs the pollution running into the lake from the community through either septic systems or the stormwater drains. We had dogs last year come and they sniff out all the basins. And the dogs are specially trained so that they can tell you where a source point is. And then through DES and state, we've just awarded $75,000 to follow up on this for remediation purposes. And then the state also, and this applies to a joint project between Guilford and Laconia, awarded us $15,000 for the Black Brook study. This Black Brook meanders all the way. It's by Lowe's and the Walmart and up into Guilford, and it deposits right into Pogus Bay, right near the input source of our water supply system. And so there was almost $600,000 worth of grants that are applying to the environment that will help the environment out. Super. Well, at this point in our meeting, under the RSAs, I am requesting that we have a motion to go into a non-public session for the sole purpose of what the RSAs indicate. In the non-public, there'll be no discussion or decisions made on any subject that should be in the public session. But as we have done for the last two meetings, I would like to request a motion to go into non-public, and at the conclusion of the non-public session, we'll ask for a motion to adjourn the planning commission executive board.
I suggest you say the name of the RSA, or should I read it?
Yeah, do you have, I just don't have the number right in front
It's
of me.
New Hampshire RSA 91-A:42A.
Thank you.
So
We have,
moved.
the motion's been made to go into non-public session. Is there a second? Second. The motion's been made and second, and then by the rules that we're refining this, we do need, without recording the individual name, but we need to have a roll call going around the room as to if you vote to go into non-public. We'll start with our vice chairman.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. And so by that vote, we'll now go into non-public. Thank you very much.